I would say that the main problem that we have been facing is that the country in the last 20 years, in the last 25 years, since 1991, uh, after the fall of the President Shah's regime, when we started the journey towards democracy, we have developed a very unique style of democracy. A democracy which is practiced basically for one day, only during the day of the election. And other than that, for the rest of 5 years, uh, we don't talk about democracy. And people at large have somehow started believing that democracy means only to have a fair election where they can actually go out and vote and their vote will be counted, and that's all democracy is all about. Uh, but which is not the case. So what I mean that in the last 25 years, which is a pretty long time, we often hear that people say that change doesn't come overnight. It is a matter of a process, so we have to give it time. But we have given 25 years, and we couldn't institutionalize democracy. The democratic institutions were not developed. We still could not have a proper election commission which is acceptable by the general people. We could not have a proper independent and sovereign judiciary which can perform independently. We do not even have a proper department of prosecution. We have a police department which acts like a front organization of the political party in power, and we couldn't do much about it. And the problem is that we have the nation somehow developed some sort of a tolerance towards it. People have started accepting everything. Whatever happens, people started accepting it. That okay, this will happen. It's a state of hopelessness among the generation, that people have lost hope that change will not come in this country. Nothing is going to happen. The country is going to go farther backward instead of coming forward. And you see that because of that, among the younger people, in the last 25 years, the best students, those who graduate from high school and go to universities, in one of the surveys we have found out that more than 85% of the top students of the country have actually left the country. So the process of brain drain that have started in the last 25 years. So everything together, if you see, there is a state of hopelessness, but as a young political leader, I think that no, we have to bring back that hope, and that is the main job that we need to do. When it comes to the culture of torture in the society, we have discussed it many times, that torture is actually one of the biggest industry in the country. Torture and extortion, the amount of money that is flowing in this culture of torture is so big that if somebody needs to fight it, it is the government, it is the institutions, it is the people at large has to join together and has to fight it. Otherwise, it is impossible to fight that thing. When it comes to fair trial, same thing. It's a culture, because we don't have fair trial. Currently, we are facing a lot of problems in that regard, and to bring an institutional change, especially in the criminal justice system, to ensure fair trial for the citizens, we need to start at some point. I think that planting seed has not taken place. It will take another 20 years, but someone has to plant the seed to bring about change, and that hasn't taken place yet. So we have a lot to do, a lot more to do, and we're just hoping that things will change, and I believe that it has to be a generational change, and the generational change is taking place because the appetite for change is there. So the new generation, the younger people, we have a very vibrant younger generation. And what I have mentioned even in this conference, that almost 80% of the total population are below the age of 40. And this 80% of the people actually do not influence in the policy making, and do not cannot take part in the nation building process. But there will be a natural process. By the law of nature, these people will come into places in today or tomorrow, in sometimes in the future. No one can stop that. It's a natural process, and then we actually expect that change will take place, and at least that planting seed uh, uh, will be done, and then we will take time. Once we are in the right track, let it take another 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. We want to be in the right track. We want to fall into the right track, and that will take some time. And I think the generational change will take place in Bangladesh very soon. Let's not blame the people at large. I think we have to take the blame as politicians. It is the job of a political leader to lead and guide its citizen into the right direction. See, if you look into the history, there is a very interesting analysis of the history of Bangladesh. As a nation, we have basically three major achievements, if you look into the history. And there is a time span of 19 to 20 years in between in every changes. And so, as a nation, we're stuck in a 20-year cycle. It started in 1952, where the younger generation of 1952 actually demanded to be recognized as a nation when we fought for our mother tongue, Bengali, to be the state language. And we achieved it. So that generation 52 actually exactly knew what they wanted. When they said, what you want? They said, we want the mother tongue to be recognized as a state language. So there was a demand, and we achieved it. 19 years later, in 1971, the generation 71 specifically knew what they wanted. They said, we want independence. They achieved it. Another 19, 20 years later, in 1990, the generation 90, they demanded democracy. So they exactly knew what they wanted. They said, we want democracy, and they achieved it. Now, after that, we started the democratic journey. We could not institutionalize democracy. We have changed government in every election, which proves that the appetite for change is there. And then instead of 20 years, now we are almost crossing 25 years, and change is not taking place. Now, as a young politician, I have visited colleges and universities across the country. I've spoken to thousands of young people. And interestingly, if they're like, when I speak to 100 boys and girls in one room and ask them, do you want change? And I see every one of them would raise their hand and say, yes, we want change. But then when you ask them, what change do you want? These 100 people will come up with 100 different solutions. And that is the problem. We could not identify one single solution. What needs to be done? One thing that can trigger the entire process, that can spark this appetite that we have for change. Is it the election commission that needs to be fixed first? Is it the judiciary that needs to be focused? It is the corruption that we need to focus? What is it that we need to do? In 52 we knew exactly what we want to do. In 1971 we knew exactly what we want to do. In 1990 we knew exactly what we want to do. Now we say we want change, which is very, very generalized, very vast, and we cannot find the answer. As a political leader, it is our responsibility to identify what is it exactly. We have to prioritize it, and what is it exactly that we need, and we need to communicate it to the younger people. People are ready for a change. There can be a peaceful uprising, there can be a renaissance if we can find the right answer. And this is what, we come to these international conferences. Every time I come to AHRC, to understand that, what are the different answers, solutions could be there. Like when I look at Hong Kong, and I see that one ICAC in 1974 actually triggered the entire thing. So can there be something like that in Bangladesh? Just one thing that can trigger the entire generation to raise their voice, to rise and to go for a change, to believe in something that yes, this can take us to our destination. Uh, and what is that? And that is something that we are still looking for. And when we find that answer, we will go to the people and we have to communicate it with them, and we can do that. I think there we are still missing, and that is the hopelessness. And I'm frustrated myself that what is it that we do? We've got so many problems. Every sector there are problems. We've got problems with the judiciary, we've got problems with the police department, we've got problems with the education system, we've got problems with the foreign policies, we've got problems with the health sectors. Corruption is another major issue. Media is another issue. So, but what is it that one thing that we need to do, and there has to be a consensus among the general people, among the experts, among the civil society and the political leaders. And to do that, what we need is we need a leader, one person to come and show us, one person that we can have confidence in, we can trust, and that person has to come. So we need a leadership who has directly connected to the grassroots and who has an answer to us. People don't believe us anymore. So every time that I go and I say, we need change, we need to change the government, both the major mainstream political parties actually cannot fulfill our aspirations. So we need something new. And people say, okay, I agree. So, we can vote for you, but do you have a magic in hand? I don't have a magic in hand. We need a leader who will come in front of us and say, yes, I have a magic in hand, and this is the magic. Is it an ICAC is the magic? Is the Election Commission is the magic? What is the magic? We have to find it out. When you talk about the basic fundamentals of the Declaration of Independence, when you talk about issues like human dignity and respect as a citizen, we live in a country. It is a Muslim country, basically, and we don't have a caste system like a Hindu society, but we have developed an economic class system, and we live in a country where I would say 70% or more of the total population, those who are considered as a lower economic class, do they actually understand what human dignity means? They don't. Let's say, culturally, let's say, I always give that answer. I always give that example. Every Friday we have a special prayer. So, and that takes place usually during the afternoon in the mosque at 1 o'clock, 1:30. And usually when I get late, I come down from my apartment and I shout at my chauffeur, the driver, and he drives fast. We park in front of the mosque. We both come out of the car. We both run together into the mosque. We stand by each other, me and my driver, and say my prayers together in one line. Equality. The moment I come out of the mosque, I become myself, and my driver becomes him. My driver, can never come inside my living room and sit in the sofa and can speak to me. The person that works in my house, the maid, cannot imagine can sit in the same dining table with me and eat. Even if I ask her, why don't you sit here and eat? He wouldn't believe, he wouldn't even accept it, because he doesn't understand it. He doesn't understand what human dignity is, something that we talk about. So education is a big thing. People to realize that as a human being, he deserves to be treated equally. And 70% of the people of the whole country don't even understand what they deserve. How can you bring that country forward? How can you talk about change in a society like that? So education is a key here. So now, if you now talk about educating these 70% people first and then talk about change, then I don't know when the change is going to come. So, that's what I said. I really don't know what the answer should be. Is the Election Commission or is the education? There's a debate on that. But what I think is the basic problem that we are facing today is the leadership crisis. We do not have the right leader to stand in front of us, or the leadership crisis is the main crisis. In 71 we had a leader, 52 we had a leader, 90 we had a leader. But now with this generation, with this huge appetite for change, where we need not just a political change, but also socio-cultural change. We need a leader. There is a leadership crisis. If we can find that, I think we can answer a lot of questions. Other than that, if you want very specific answers about election commissions, about education policies, about judiciary, about policing, that can be discussed. We can always discuss that. But nothing will actually work unless we can communicate it to the people and people take it in confidence. For that, you need political leadership. And we're still looking for that, and we're looking for also the right solution to come stand before the people and say, hey, I have a magic in my hand, I can change. We're waiting for that day.